Hey guys, so today we'll be doing a math on the go video for the product rule. These math on the go videos, they're designed for people who, either haven't done calculus in a while but remember most of their rules and just want a refresher. If you want a full explanation and you're beginning, you're just starting out in calculus, I recommend you go watch the video on just the product rule. That does a full explanation. It's a full lesson. This is just for people who want a refresher, who've already done Calc 1 and they're just looking back, or people who are studying for a final exam and they just want to look back and get a refresher, but they mostly understand the concepts. So let's get started. So what is the product rule? Well, the product rule is a rule for taking the derivative when we have a product of functions. So for example, let's say we have h of x, and that's equal to f of x times g of x. So we have a product of two functions right here, and in order to take its derivative, we must use the product rule. The product rule can also be extended to 3, 4, 5, even 100 functions, as many as you want. So if I have f of x times g of x times, say, t of x, I can extend the product rule to take the derivative. But I have to use the product rule because this is a product of functions. So again, just as a quick recap, in order to take the derivative when we have a product of functions, we must use the product rule. So what is the product rule? So in order here, we have h prime of x, and I'm just going to stick to 2, just f of x and g of x. So in order to find the derivative, I have to take the derivative of f of x first times g of x plus the derivative of g of x times f of x. So basically, you have to take the derivative of one of the functions and multiply it by the other, then add, now take the derivative of the other function and multiply it by the one whose derivative you've already taken. And if you have multiple functions, say we had that t of x again, we'd have something like this. So f prime of x times g of x times t of x plus, and then you've already taken the derivative of f of x, so it's now like each function gets its own turn to have its derivative taken. So there we go. F of x, g of x, t prime of x. So you see that every function had its own turn. F of x got its turn to have its derivative taken. Then it was multiplied by g of x and t of x. And then f of x, then you add, and then you get f of x times g prime of x times t of x. And then add again, now you got f of x times g of x times t prime of x. So each function had its turn to have its derivative taken. And the product rule can therefore then also be reparameterized as if you have h prime of x and we just have 2 terms or even 3 terms, but I'm just going to stick to 2 here. We can reparameterize this by saying that u is equal to f of x, and we can say v is equal to g of x, and we can reparameterize this since our product rule is f prime of x and g times g of x plus g prime of x times f of x. We can reparameterize this using the parameters u and v. So right now we have u is equal to f of x and v is equal to g of x. And in order to find u prime and v prime, we would have to then take the derivative. So we got u prime is equal to f prime of x. So our f prime of x is equal to u prime, and our v prime is equal to g prime of x. So substituting this whole thing, each of these, into our expression for the derivative, what do we get? Well, what's f prime of x? Well, f prime of x is u prime. What's g of x? Well, it's v. So we got our first term. So u prime is equal to f prime of x, and g of x is equal to v prime. So now we add, and now what's g prime of x? Well, g prime of x is just v prime. And what's f of x? Well, f of x is just u. Therefore, now we've reparameterized the product rule, and we can extend this to a product of more than 2 functions. We could introduce, if we add in this case t of x, we could introduce w is equal to t of x and w prime is equal to g prime of x, and then you'd have this third term right here. And you can try that on your own, or you can watch the full video on the product rule, and I'll go over this in more detail. So let's do a quick example before we go. So we are given a function h of x is equal to 3x squared plus 6x times x to the 4 plus 2. So we want to take the derivative of this, and we recognize this is a product of two functions. So we have one right here, like I just highlighted, and another one right here. So we can treat this first one as our u, or our f of x, and this second one as our v, or our g of x. Now, the reparameterization is very important because it makes everything much clearer to see, and just overall, just easier to remember. So, like I said, I go over this in more detail in the full video on the product rule. So, let's take the derivative. So, if u is equal to f of x, and that is equal to 3x squared plus 6x, and v is equal to g of x, that is equal to x to the 4 plus 2. Well, to take the derivative, we reparameterize our product rule as u prime v plus v prime u. So let's do that. What's u prime? Well, u prime is just 6x plus 6. What's v prime? Well, v prime is just 4x to the 3. And this is just using the power rule. Real simple, real easy. So to find h prime of x equal to that, well, let's put it all together. H prime of x is equal to, let's put it together. So what's u prime? Well, u prime is just 6x plus 6. Well, what is v? Well, v is just g of x, which is just x to the, actually I'll put this in brackets. So we got x to the 4 plus 2, and we have all the pieces of our puzzle right here. So then plus, well, now we take the derivative of v, which is v prime, and v prime is just 4x to the 3 times, well, it's times by u, and u is just 3x squared plus 6x. So we ran out a little bit of room here, so I'm just going to rewrite this. Write this. So I'm going to say h prime of x is just 6x plus 6 times x to the 4 plus 2 plus, and then we had v prime, which v prime is just 4x to the 3, and times u, and u is just 3x squared plus 6x. So there we go. We found our derivative. So I hope that was a good summary and a recap of the product rule. I recommend watching the full video though. Highly recommend that, because this is just a quick summary for people who, just want a quick refresher, and, it'll just jog their memory and everything just comes back to them and they just understand it again. For people, just starting out, beginners, go watch the product rule video. That is where you should start. This is not